Hi Taurus, welcome to my channel and welcome to your reading for the month of June. I just want to remind you that it's an overall reading and my purpose here is to check up on your energies and see if those are the types of vibrations that you want to nurture this time around based on the goals that you have. Alright Taurus, so let's begin. If you notice in the heart of the reading, you have this Five of Swords. And we see a person here looking to the back or to the past. This person either had a fight or some sort of conflict with somebody else. We see three people here. If you notice, we three people here in the Five of Swords, and we see three people in the Six of Coins. So that makes me feel like we may be dealing with more than two people here, especially when we have the Moon in the challenge. And then the Ten of Swords, clarifying the Moon. So, it could either be a third-party situation. It doesn't have to be for everybody a third person. It could talk about a friendship. Maybe somebody relying on a friendship to talk about their problems and getting some sort of advice. But definitely somebody walked away. And I feel like this battlefield or this conflict, mainly in this particular situation and in this particular relationship, because the cards are talking about the journey between two people in a relationship. So this could be a committed relationship as well as marriage. The Pope, although the card of the Pope or the Hierophant is not coming out, but it's definitely influencing this reading a lot. So, this could be definitely a committed relationship or a marriage. Commitment is commitment. To me, having to have a license, a marriage license, doesn't make it more. So to me, being in a relationship where you're living with somebody, that's a relationship. That's a committed relationship. So, sometimes I like to clarify a lot of the words in the way that I use these words, because everybody has their own meaning and their own understanding in how to use the language. so yeah, I feel like we're definitely talking about a situation here of a relationship, what's happening in a relationship. We have 3 sixes, and there is an element that it's talking about, aspects of that relationship. We have the cups upside down, we have the coins side up, and then the swords upside down. So as far as the communication and the emotional aspect of the relationship is not doing well. Because in the actions, this concept of giving and receiving is missing. It's basically missing. So I feel like if this is you, because I cannot really tell who is who, but if you're this Five of Swords, I feel like, the reason why you're looking to the past is because you're probably taking the time to reflect and analyze what happened in a way that is kind of making you feel like it's time to change. The Death card, it's time to change. It's like somebody here is feeling like, whatever happened in the past. There are 6 cups upside down here. And that says a lot. And when we look at the bottom, we have an Ace of Pentacles upside down. The cups in this reading are upside down. And I will tell you, the energy that is influencing the emotions here is the devil. I know the devil has not come out, but in numbers, the numbers are saying it's the devil. And the devil is talking about insecurities, is talking about deception, especially because we have the moon here as a challenge. Things that are being kept a secret, things that are not being told. And I don't know about you guys, but if somebody is not wanting to be honest and open, emotionally available, honest in a relationship, it's really difficult for the relationship to work. And it doesn't matter how much you try to help the other person see the importance of needing to open up. If that person is not ready to change, nothing will come of it. And when I look at the swords here, there's 22 swords. Communication here is not necessarily the best. I mean, look at this guy here. So, and we have a 10. So that means that this is a path that, these are things that have been happening for a while. Oh yeah. This is a karmic lesson. You know, when I do these readings in Spanish and English, so I already have an idea when I do the English one, what the cards are about, because I'm using the same cards. But one of the things that I've learned to respect when I do these readings is that there are times when, you know, I'm doing the reading in English that a lot of other information may come up that didn't come out in my Spanish one. So I've learned to respect that. So just because we have the same cards, it doesn't necessarily mean that my readings in English are going to be exactly the same in Spanish. But I will tell you, one of the oracles confirm that this particular relationship is about a karmic lesson. It's learning a lesson. And karmic relationships are so difficult sometimes, because I mean it's kind of like it's like growing pains. Think about it. You know, think about that age when we had our first love, and you know, we had a crush on somebody, and then we got heartbroken. It's just kind of, you know, part of some of the lessons that we have to go through life to realize that not everything we want, sometimes we're able to get it. Does that mean that we don't have what it takes to eventually attract what we're wanting? Of course we can. It's just a matter of learning sometimes to value certain things, because, you know, there's a big difference between thinking about something and actually having the experience of what we're thinking. So a lot of times we get to practice with different people how to feel the ideas that we have in our heads. And it's a form of practice that can teach us a lot, so that when we're really ready and capable and knowledgeable enough and serious enough to create the type of relationship that we desire, we know from experience what to do and not to do. So these karmic lessons, to me, Taurus, is what we need to experience in order to prepare ourselves to get to that point when we're able to be in a sacred union, to be with our twin soul. That concept of twin soul that gets thrown around a lot. A lot of times we don't know that because, you know, when we're in the experience, we think about the way we feel about this person and the level of connection that we have with this person. And sometimes we have very strong emotional ties and connections with karmic relationships. And that's the reason why we get pulled in because the energy of the connection that we feel is so enticing. But that's how you get pulled in into having this experience where you're going to learn something valuable. If you didn't have that level of connection between the two of you, you wouldn't go about trying to learn the lesson, because sometimes these are really lessons that are very difficult to learn. It's learning about who you are as a person, learning about your limitations through somebody else, because there are times where you are not able to know and to be more aware of what you're doing. So it requires you to do it with somebody else. So you have a karmic lesson in this particular situation. Does that mean that you need to end it? I don't know. I am in no position to tell you what to do. But what I see here is that there are challenges with the communication. There are challenges with the emotions, with the feelings. Because in the actions, two people are not necessarily being equally giving. They don't know how to give, and they don't know, and the other one is not receiving. And to me, that's important enough. Also, we have a challenge here with secrets. Or maybe somebody has some sort of addiction here. Maybe the addiction is to lie. Some people, it's all about growing as a soul. And there are times and there are moments where we get to have this type of relationships with very young souls. And we normally can tell by the way they are. Now, I see somebody here that has probably walked away a few times and then have come back. And I'm also seeing, Taurus, that the way you're being viewed in this particular situation is as somebody who could very well be a little bit wishy-washy, or somebody who cannot make their mind. When I look at the wands here, well, we have 14 wands. We have 14 wands and we have 14 coins. Wands is talking about your fire. It's talking about your focus. And if you notice here, the reason why the Fool is upside down is because somebody's waiting. Somebody's waiting to see if something changes in this particular situation. And when I see the Nine of Wands, when I see a Queen of Wands upside down, I see trouble, because waiting and waiting to see whether this situation is going to get better. If you haven't really learned to know your own limitations, that waiting can drive you nuts. Of course, it's also an opportunity to address a lot of insecurities, because one of the things that will kick in the wait is your expectations. And in many cases, the tendency of the other person is to take a long time. I feel like that's what the universe does on purpose. Make the other person take some time, so that the person that has this expectation of, needing to address the situation right away, or for the other person to make a change and come back and work things out, learns that waiting is not the best option to take. Because everything happens based on synchronicity. So if the other person is not coming back, your priority is not to sit around and wait and drive yourself crazy and start thinking about what happened and the things that you're not getting. You know what I mean? It's for you to focus on learning to understand who you are, paying attention to your thoughts, checking up on your insecurities, trying to create some sort of habits that will allow you to transform those insecurities and heal yourself. So there is no such a thing as something taking a long time. And the Nine of Wands sometimes implies that, we're kind of standing around in our own energy, and because we know what we want, we're expecting for the other person to do something, probably because the other person has not taken the necessary actions to demonstrate to me how they feel. So it's kind of like, well, I've done enough and I've gone out of my way to show up and be the better person. Now it's the other person's turn. So let me wait. But in the meantime, our energy is upside down. The oracle is saying waiting around so that the other person can take the initiative because now is their turn is not necessarily the healthiest choice that you can make. And this is why Temperance is coming out and the Pope, the Hierophant, in this reading. The cards are not here, but their energy is. And it's talking with your fire, with the fire. I don't know if this is you, Taurus, or the other person. It could very well be you, because that's how you're being seen here. So, your fire should not be just tied down to this particular situation. And I would say that the reason probably why this person is waiting, it has a lot to do with their thought process. And that thought process has a lot to do with the person's belief system. And those belief systems may very well come from what this person learned as a child. Especially on the father side. When you start diving into all this symbology, it's just amazing the things that you see. Because it's like layers and layers of information. But again, the idea is, what can we do in a situation like this? Because somebody here knows that it's time to change. And when we look at the overall energy, we see a seven of coins upside down. So we have the 6 of coins here in the right direction, but the 7 of coins is upside down, which is talking about, what are the seeds? What is the seeds that we're planting in this particular connection that I can rely on to be able to say that this particular situation is working for me? And look at the sword, the Ace of Swords upside down, and there's the Magician in the bottom. So when I asked the oracles, Taurus, it's very interesting because apart from saying that this is a karmic lesson, and again it's talking about the 10, the cosmic clock, the fortune. To me, it's the wheel of fortune. It's also talking about a spiritual storm, chaos. So the oracle is representing this particular situation, a spiritual storm. To me, this is kind of like the Tower. But I really like the energy of this card, and I'll tell you why. I mean, sometimes in order to construct something beautiful, we need to go through a process of destruction and get to feel and get to experience what that is, so that we can tell the difference between something that is destructive to something that is not. So the only way that we're capable of appreciate beauty, joy, happiness is sometimes to experience sadness, anger, frustration, absence of love. Sometimes there are some of us that in order to really learn to appreciate joy and happiness and love, we have to go through hate. We have to go through the gates of hell and create all kinds of experiences that are hellish, so that we can say, oh my God, no, this is not what I want. This does not feel good. And of course, young souls, I feel like that's one of the things that they need to practice time after time, because, you know, there are young souls that are not used to having an emotional body. And you can tell right away that kind of people. I mean, their way of processing information and working it out with their feelings is not there. It's like, I mean, some of these people, we call them narcissists, or maybe very childish, maybe very self-centered. But again, we got to remember that every one of us at some point in our evolution have gone through the same lessons. We all have to go through the same lessons. So in this particular case, there is a storm, but this storm is what's helping to charge the energy of the two people, so that they can wake up to the level of awareness where the person is willing to recognize their own choices. Take responsibility for your choices. And of course, before you construct something beautiful, you're going to have to go through this process of destruction. And there is a big difference, Taurus, between thinking about destruction and actually going through the experience of feeling that loss. So the oracle, another oracle says, you know, you got to step back, especially when things are getting too chaotic and nobody is agreeing, and we're arguing and we're going back and forth, and all we're doing is reminding ourselves of what we did and we didn't do, and then step back and let things chill out. In the meantime, take this time as an opportunity to work on yourself and try to figure out what is the lesson for you in this particular situation that you need to learn. What do you need to transcend? The other person has the same opportunity. But again, it is not your responsibility to work that out, to work what the other person is going to do or not do. It is your responsibility to do it your own way. It's funny because this reminds me of a particular situation that I went through a few years back. I mean, were many moons ago. And it was about a storm. I never forgot the lesson that I got. So I had a boyfriend at the time, and my kids were young, and we decided to go and visit his sister. But in the way back, my youngest daughter decided to drive with my boyfriend, or my ex at that time, my boyfriend at that time, And my oldest daughter decided to drive with me. Well, in the middle of the way, all of a sudden, we got caught in this ice storm that was horrible. Now, mind you, I'm the Caribbean queen. I love heat. I have never experienced a storm like that, nor I have driven through a storm like that. So when I saw myself in the middle of that storm where I couldn't even see like a mile away in front of me, I freaked out. And I could see cars sliding off the road. And you can imagine, I freaked out. And I remember that I started to cry. I stopped the car in the middle of the road and I didn't want to move. And if it wasn't because of my oldest daughter, poor thing, I think she was around, I said she was 12, but I think she was a little older, that she started to tell me, Mom, you can't stay here. We're going to get hit. You need to drive. You can do this. You can do this. That I would have stayed there and gotten hit. So when I saw her like that, it made me feel really bad. So I said, okay. But I was crying. So finally, I was able to pull over at a gas station. I got out of the main highway to sort of get myself together. So, I called my boyfriend and he said, it's true that there is a really bad storm. But actually, where we're at right now, because he had left before me, so he was driving a lot faster than I was. So he said, Sandra, where I'm at right now, there is no snow. So eventually the snow is going to stop and the weather, is going to change. So I said, okay. But, I remember staying for a little bit in that gas station thinking, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know that I can drive. Well, finally, I felt this instinct that said, now. So I told my daughter, okay, we're going to go. We're going to drive slow and I can do this. And she's like, yeah, Mom, you can do this. She was so sweet. It's so good. Well, I started to drive, got back in the main highway, and I started to drive really, really slow. I was very careful, but I was really extremely afraid. But one of the things that I noticed that my boyfriend was right. Eventually, all of a sudden, the snow stopped. And now, it was already dark. It was already I think around 9 o'clock at night. So all of a sudden, the skies were clear. It was beautiful outside. I mean, it was not warm, but it was a really crystal clear sky and all the snow was gone. And you know what I learned from that lesson? I have never forgotten that lesson because I remember driving after that thinking, oh my God, this is just like an emotional storm. When you're in the middle of that storm, you think the worst and you think the world is going to end. But eventually, like anything else, the storm ends and calm comes back and things, are just like nothing happened. I have never forgotten that experience, and I always apply how I felt in that moment every time I have an experience that is chaotic. So what I'm trying to say here, Taurus, is that this storm will pass, and eventually one day you're going to look back and you're going to feel like, this lesson might have been a difficult one, but it was the best thing that happened to you. The other oracle is saying, the sun. You see, the sun. We need to find clarity. Before we make a choice or we try to force an issue or, try to create a change or manipulate the situation for a change so that we don't have to feel the emotional discord, take the time to work with yourself and pay attention to the type of conversations that your ego is having in the back of your mind and work with that. I recently had another experience where I felt like a coconut fell in my head. I like to see these experiences as epiphanies where a coconut or maybe a few coconuts fell on my head and helped me realize something that I didn't before. But, I realized that, I had a lot of mental programs in my subconscious mind that were basically reinforcing this idea that I am not good enough to have love and to have joy in my life. And I've done a lot of work over the years to work with myself and to do things that I can improve as a person and as a human being. But a human being is an incredible being. I mean, the things that we can do is just amazing. And the level of information that we can retain in our subconscious mind is crazy. It's huge. And if you don't have what it takes to become aware of those conversations, man, you're in trouble. I went to see this guy. His name is Dr. Joe Dispenza, and this guy is doing an incredible job to demystify the mystical. And this happened 3 weeks ago, where I went to Denver, Colorado to one of his conference, and it was fantastic. I've done a lot of different things in my life, but this going there was one of the best things that I've done in recent times. And I have to tell you that in one of his meditations, that's when I realized that I still had a lot of these programs in the back of my mind running, automatically, creating noises that sometimes I felt them as me not liking myself. But when I paid attention to the conversation in those meditations, I realized that it's just the nature of the mind to repeat the same shit over and over again, because that's what it learned. And if you were taught that you're not good enough or you're not worthy to receive love, the mind will repeat that until you teach it not to do it anymore. So that's when I made this commitment with myself that I will begin to meditate. I've always been a meditator, but sometimes I go through a process where I stop meditating. Well, in that moment, I decided, what? It's time to go back to meditation. Because meditation is one of the ways where you become aware of your own thoughts. You don't have to wait for an experience to get you to hit a wall in order for you to recognize how you're feeling and what you're thinking. You can actually, through meditation, work at improving your relationship with your own self and get to hear some of the programs that your unconscious mind has active in the background that is creating all kinds of noise, and it's what's making you to feel insecure and feel like you're not worthy. And finally I realized, Taurus, that you can spend your whole lifetime trying to achieve your goals and your dreams, but if you don't feel worthy of receiving them, no matter what you do, you will never be happy, because you don't think you're worthy. So Taurus, I wish you the best of luck. I know that you have what it takes to make the right choice. In the meantime, the oracles are saying, take it easy. Work with yourself. Let the storm take its course and wait until things come back to normal. And in the meantime, seek the sun. Seek clarity. Thank you, Taurus. I wish you the best of luck.